What's going on, everybody? I wanted to do a quick recap of not only today's price action, but kind of going over what's been going on the last week or so with the whole oil correlation as well. But starting off with just what's going on recently with today, we had a lowercase b day, which is kind of continuing this downward pressure that we had that started on Tuesday when we tried to put in higher value and then it quickly failed, sweeping that high and then turning bearish. You had a lowercase b form on Wednesday and then a lowercase b form today. And it's a very systematic sell-off because you can see these value levels are like perfectly lining up with the value low and value high. And this morning we had a very similar thing with the value low of yesterday, and our value high of today was around that same area. Now, obviously, it's a lot lower currently, but during the open, they were pretty much overlapping. And then speaking of overlaps, for most of the afternoon, the POC of Monday and the POC of today were literally to the exact tick the same level. Now, as the day went on and we closed, the POC came down a little bit, so they're not exactly the same anymore, but literally to the exact tick. They were matching for, I think, about an hour or two today. So showing you that the sell pressure is following it kind of level by level by level, very systematic. And when you have these lowercase b days, what do we always talk about in our volume profile videos and our trade plan videos, or sorry, our playbook videos? We talk about the sellers having the most potential on the value high of that lowercase b day. And you can still be a buyer around the value low, but you need to be very careful because you're typically looking to extend that lower tail and push that lower value. And one of our favorite trades on lowercase b days is that bear flag into VWAP because it follows that same exact mentality where, yes, they can be buyers around that value low. And let me go ahead and pull up VWAP so you guys know what I'm talking about here. You can be buyers around that value low, but as you push back into that value high, you're typically going to run into that session VWAP or possibly the daily VWAP around that same area. And as they protect one of those levels, they're kind of protecting both of them, right? Either failing VWAP turns out to be failing the value high as well, or vice versa. And today, we were failing VWAP on pretty much every single retest. We had a bounce back into 940, like right around the open, hit VWAP to the exact tick, sold off, back into the value low, tried to extend the lower tail, found some buyers around the value low, back into the value high, which once again lined up with VWAP. They sold VWAP again. So now that we're rotating off the value high, where are we going? Back to the value low. So back down towards the value low creates that kind of bear flag form, the impulse of that bear flag. So you have that impulse down. And then once again, what do? The buyers buy up around the value low. When they're trying to extend that lower tail, the buyers come in, right? And then you push back into VWAP, which is right around where the value high is. So we just kind of did the same thing over and over and over again. And then once again, failed VWAP, so on and so forth. You guys get it at this point. But basically, what you want to look out for when you have those lowercase b's is when VWAP is lining up around that value high, you can look to be a bear flag in the VWAP trader, where you look for that sell pressure lining up with either VWAP or the value high, and then you put your stop above those levels, and then you target the rotation back down to the POC, possibly back down to the value low. And best case scenario, if you had a runner, you could look for that lower tail extension. Going back to my other chart here, let's say, for example, we had a VWAP trade up here where the value high was as well. POC is obviously going to be about the halfway point. Typically, it's about halfway to the value low. So you could have a take profit there. Rotation back down to the value low. You could have a take profit there. In best case scenario, when you have a lowercase b, what do we always talk about? they are looking for that lower tail extension. So if you left a runner, let's say we sold up here around VWAP and we left a runner and it did give us that lower tail extension, then our trade is looking very good, right? That's best case scenario. It's not obviously going to happen every single time. Now, the same could be said with a P-shaped profile. If you wanted to flip that upside down, because you have a lowercase b, right? You can flip it to the high side on a P-shaped profile, and you could do the same thing. Let's say VWAP was around the value low, and you had a bull flag into VWAP, typically going to be the same as the rotation into the value low. So as long as they're lining up, you could be a buyer around that area looking for the rotation back to the value high, and best case scenario, an upper tail extension. So same exact thing. Now, we've been typically seeing the bear flag and the VWAP play out a lot more just because of the nature of the market we're in right now. So just remember that. Lowercase b days, look for that value high in session VWAP to line up around the same area. And then as you are going for your VWAP target, which is typically the prior low, you're almost always going to be also going for that value low as well. They're going to be around the same area. So keep an eye on how those line up. That can help you a lot in your scalping, especially if you're scalping VWAP, right? So one more thing I wanted to go over before we call it a video is you guys have to be very careful trading right now because of what's going on in the Middle East. When you have stuff like that going on, the correlation between oil and the stock market is very, very strong. Now, obviously, right now, the correlation is an inverse correlation. So if oil skyrockets, that's applying downward pressure onto ES and NASDAQ, the equities market. It's almost kind of like a fear index, kind of like the volatility index, because as oil goes up, it's because the tensions in the Middle East, what's going on in Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, is getting worse, right? So you can kind of look at oil right now as like the volatility index of what's going on in the Middle East, okay? And as that volatility goes up, as the tensions go up, people are scared, they panic sell, and the equities market comes down a little bit. So be on the lookout for those headlines, be very careful. Those headlines are they're making or breaking your trades right now. So in that same note, you need to be careful holding on to trades for a long period of time because some random headline could come out with what's going on with oil. It could drive oil a lot higher, drive oil a lot lower, and that's going to dictate the price action on the equities market, which could break your trade. Okay, so be very careful about that. I'm just going to quickly go over some levels if you guys are watching the oil chart and how I pulled up some of these levels here. These are mostly on higher time frames because we are breaking a range that we have not seen. We have not seen these highs since like 2022 to 2023. So we're breaking like a 3-year range right now. So we have to go back pretty far. So I had to go back all the way to 2022 to find some value levels. And what I did is I pulled a volume profile of this kind of distribution up here. And then I grabbed like that very top, that week that created the top right there on June 2022. So we have our value levels, our value high, our POC, our value low. And then I just marked out the point of origin there. And then the absolute high around 130. And then going back to the more local price action, I grabbed a couple fibs from our local levels. So our local low down here, I grabbed a VWAP. I can actually get rid of this VWAP here. That one's an older one. And then from like where the war really started breaking out oil, I grabbed a VWAP from that level as well. And you can see that VWAP is being pretty widely respected. Right now it's at 83. That's where we pulled back yesterday and the day before, and we bounced off that VWAP pretty aggressively. I don't remember why I have that level right there. Was that a gap? I think that was like a gap that we had. Yeah, that was a gap. Let me go ahead and delete that. So that was the original gap that we had on the way up that did get filled in. So keep an eye on those levels. around 97, 103, 112. And then we have kind of our point of origin, which actually, funny enough, already gave us our local top around 120. Keep an eye on that anchored VWAP that started around the 27th of February as well. That VWAP is being widely respected. Okay. Well, long story short, if you guys are trading ES or NASDAQ, if you're scalping it, just keep oil up on another chart, on another monitor, and see if it's going crazy. See if it has some crazy movements coming in. Because if it does, that probably means there's some headlines coming out that are going to push around the equities market. Okay. But all right, guys, that's it for this recap. Hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. You guys can tune into my live streams. I stream Monday through Friday, 9:30 in the morning Eastern time. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace, everybody.